We are back live for another UFC Fight Night card with my boy Dan. Two-man booth here talking Adesanya, Imavov Fight Night. Dan, we're back. We're ready to go. And got a pretty sick fight night here. I'm pumped about it.
Yeah, same. I mean, you know, whenever they go to Saudi, the card is going to be stacked, whether it's a fight night or a pay-per-view. So we get a little bit of a gift here with like a super stacked fight night with some really great fights on the main and the prelims.
Yeah, the Saudis get the goods, which I'm fine with. That's cool. Whatever. Yeah, that's right. That's totally right. So early start too with this card, 9 a.m. Eastern time. If you're over here, Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. start time, which I know I'm gonna love until it's over, and then I'm gonna be like, well, shit, what do I do now at night? But at least I'm gonna love it to start, Dan. So I'm fine with it. 9 a.m. is cool, and it's not like it was when it was. What was that card where it was like 3 a.m.? Do you remember that card?
That was the card in China. The
Macau card. Yes, the Macau card, which was actually a pretty cool card too, by the way. But
that was pretty fun. We had all the diehards in the chat. I forget. I fell asleep during.
I think you took a nap for like 30 minutes at one point, and then came back in.
Yeah, and I woke up after the. I woke up and I checked the app and I saw that Shi Ming had won by pick. I was like, what? I was like, what the fuck happened here, dude?
Yeah, there were a few big upsets on that card. So was Lucas Alexander on that card? Was he one of the big upsets too? Was he on that card?
I don't think so. Let me double check right now, but I don't think so.
I know he was a big upset. He was like a -500 favorite last fight. I just couldn't remember which card he was on, but
no, the last time he fought was on the Alan Craig card where he lost.
Oh, okay. Alan Craig card. Okay.
Which is not good.
Yeah. He was Alexander was a -500 favorite. I still remember that got dropped. Let's see here. I heard JSU's surprise appearance in the octagon tomorrow. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. But you never know, I guess.
Get on your flight now, bro.
Yeah. I don't know about that. All right, Dan, like we said, awesome fights here to talk about. Anything else before we get into this card? Any kind of overlook? It's only 11 fights. So, I mean, we got a few kind of knocked off the card. But like you said, we got a lot of like really good fights. And I think a lot of live dogs in these fights too.
Yeah, before we fully dive in, I just want to say go Birds.
He had to throw that in there. He couldn't wait. He was like, we got to talk Jalen Hurts and stuff like that. I was like, okay, we'll talk about whatever you want, Dan. I don't care. You can talk about your Eagles if you want to. I'll give you the floor if you want to blow Jalen Hurts real quick and talk about how great he is. The floor is yours.
No, I just had to throw Go Birds in there. And like, I'm really excited for this Super Bowl matchup, man. I see a lot of people bitching. They don't want to see a rematch. They hate the Chiefs. They hate the Eagles, blah, blah, blah. Lots of crying. But this is the two best teams in the NFL going head to head in the Super Bowl. Like, what more could you want? And this Eagles 24 team, much better than the team that went in 22. So I think we're in for a fucking great slugfest, man. Like, I don't know how you could not love this matchup.
I will just say one thing. I know how people could not love this matchup. It's that they hate the two organizations that are in the Super Bowl. But I get what you're saying from the standpoint of you got two really good fucking teams, and they've been two of the best teams all year. How couldn't you love it? I'll tell you how they couldn't love it. They couldn't love it because they hate both the organizations. No one wants to see Pat Mahomes three-peat. And no one wants to see the Eagles because the Eagles fans are obnoxious. Not saying you, but these Eagles fans that you see online with some of these videos are just absolutely obnoxious.
Oh, I'm obnoxious. I'll take that.
Yeah, but I don't think you'd be like ripping some commander dude's hat off and running away with it and like in his face. I don't think you'd be doing stuff like that. But some of the stupid stuff, like trying to get into fights, like, I'm cool with you cheering. You say you suck or your team sucks. I'm fine with that. You go anywhere, you're going to get that. But I think Philly, they go a little over the top is all I'm going to say. Yeah. And Jason, I saw the mandate. I didn't look at the time. So I don't know if the time is like by midnight tonight. I don't know how long I have. But if that's coming from the man at the top, then I might have to I might have to listen. Just gonna say that. So yeah, I'm gonna have to listen to the aboves on that. But yeah, that's the thing with Philly, Dan. I don't think people actually like hate the matchup itself. Like when they watch the game, I think they're gonna be like, oh, these are two of like the best teams in football. I just think more people hate the idea of
either team winning. Yeah.
And the Chiefs. Yes, exactly. It's like, who do I root for? Pat Mahomes or Jalen? I don't know which one I'm going to root for yet.
No one likes us. We don't care.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, you don't have to care. Hey, you're in there. So the Philly fans, the Chiefs fans, they're happy about it. At least that's for sure. But all right,
honestly,
yeah.
It makes me even happier that it makes everybody else fucking miserable. So
I was gonna say, I would think that'd be your feel. I think that's most Eagles fans probably. They probably love that everyone hates it. So
yeah,
that's
love
funny.
that.
But all right, we got a bunch of people in the chat here. We're ready to go here. Mamba says, "Fuck the birds." I'm with you, Mamba. Screw Dan and the birds. We're riding against Dan on every fight. That's what we're gonna do here. Just every fight, we're going opposite of Dan, just to screw the birds.
A good show.
Yeah, should be a good one here. All right, let's start off at the top. Jamal Poges against Hamdi Abdul Wabi, I think is how you say his name, but I probably messed it up. But Hamdi 8K on DraftKings, Poges 8,200 on DraftKings here. Dan, got the big boys starting off this card here, and a closely lined fight too. So I mean, Jamal Poges more of like the stand up traditional striker, you know what I mean? Whereas Hamdi thinks gonna more try and get this fight down to the ground if he can. But what are you seeing with these two guys in a closely lined fight?
Yeah, we're opening up with a heavyweight slop fest, which can usually go one or two ways. Sometimes we get like a really boring kind of sort of each guy will gas within the first, 5 minutes, and they'll just be leaning up on each other, or, they'll throw bombs. Or in this case, when you have super low level heavyweights, both of these guys have massive holes in their games, which opens up a lot of opportunities for high scores, especially in this mid range where you don't really have to do a whole lot to be optimal, point per dollar. I definitely lean to the Hamdi side here. Poges just does not really interest me much at all. He's very much just a point fighter. Doesn't really seem to have much power. Doesn't throw much volume. He's pretty content to just sort of, pitter patter from the outside. He is a BJJ black belt, but we haven't really seen any submission upside from him. Not in the UFC. Hamdi is coming off of a 2-year layoff. On the other side, he's popped for steroids multiple times, which, I don't know what USADA's, if their reach really makes it over to Saudi Arabia. I guess what I'm trying to say is I think Hamdi hopefully is still on the juice. He's got the wrestling upside. He was on the Egypt's Olympic wrestling team. So he will probably come in here looking to shoot takedowns. Poges has shown some pretty decent takedown defense, but against really low-level competition. I just think that there's a lot of opportunity in this fight for optimal scores, just because both of these guys are pretty bad.
Yeah. So the way I see this fight, Dan, is that I think one is a better DFS play than the other, and I think one's a better bet, to be honest with you. I think Jamal Poges is the better bet. I could see Hamdi coming in with the heavy wrestling game plan, but slowing down later in the fight. And like you said, Jamal Poges has shown that, he is a tough guy. I mean, these are big boys. Like, he's a tough guy, but, to bring down. And I do think on the feet, Jamal Poges is better. I think he's a little faster. I think he's a little bit more just in the stand-up. Going to have him there. So if Hamdi gets tired later in this fight, I think that's going to lean Jamal Poges. Now, I don't think it leans Poges from a optimal scoring perspective here. So I think Hamdi is the better DFS play, but the guy I'm going to bet on is Jamal Poges. I do think this fight is going to go to a decision. All three of Poges' fights have gone to a decision. And again, he's just one of those guys, like, you know what I mean? 2 of the fights he won, 1 of the fights he lost. He scored 56 in 1 win. decision win over Peterson last time out. And then the Parisian fight, he scored 82. It's like, either of those scenarios, I'm not pissed if I don't have Jamal Pogues on my team. So, right. I think that's the way I lean here. I know it's kind of a little bit of a cop-out, but like, look at what Hamdi can do in his decision fights. Like, this dude got 100 last time out in a 3-round decision. If that dude gets 100 at 8K, Dan, I think he's optimal. Just going to throw that one out there. So that's the way I see this fight. I see Jamal Pogues winning the fight because I think over 3 rounds, Hamdi's going to get tired and Jamal Pogues is going to win 2 of the 3 rounds. Maybe it is a split decision. It might be that close of a fight. But I'll lean him for the pick. But for DFS, I will not be playing Pogues. I will be playing a little bit of Hamdi just for the wrestling upside.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at like the stats, whatever, from Pogues' last few fights, he does rack up takedowns, but it's against people, like you just mentioned, Josh Parisian, who is fucking terrible, he's not stopping any takedowns. And in that Parisian fight, he scored 5 takedowns, nearly 7 minutes of control time, but only 49 strikes. So usually when a guy's getting 5 takedowns and racking up nearly 7 minutes of control, you're expecting a score way better than 82. But it just underscores the problem with Pogues in general, is that he's just not active enough in the striking. He just doesn't fill up the stat sheet. He doesn't have volume. Hamdi on the other side is much better at landing ground and pound. He's got much better wrestling. And he's got more finish equity, I think, on his side. He's got more power.
Yeah.
Pogues is
like if this fight did end early, Dan, I'm gonna guess Hamdi's the winner. Just like I don't see Jamal. If Jamal wins inside the distance, I think it's late. I think it's 3rd round, and I think it's really due to Hamdi just gassing more than it's Jamal Pogues like it's him gassing, but then Jamal Pogues like voluming up a few shots in a row that kind of just, Hamdi kind of just goes down from there. But I don't see that because, like you said, the volume just isn't there either. So that's the way I see it. So are you picking Hamdi? Is that the side you're going to?
I am, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we're split there, but we both agree DFS, Hamdi's the play. I don't think I'm going to play any Pogues here, and I'm fine with that. Let's go to the next fight on the card. This fight, I do think, is going to be a fun fight. I think the opposite of fight 1. I'm actually surprised, Dan, they didn't put this fight as the starter, in my opinion, because normally you want like a good fight to start the card. I'm surprised they didn't put this one on there because Bogdan Grod is, in my opinion, kind of a fun style fighter. He's all go, and he's not the most like technical guy. So he kind of is going to naturally put on some fun fights because he's somewhat hittable, and he's got power. And even when he's tired, he doesn't like quit on himself, which is another good thing. He keeps going. So he's got some heart, and he's facing the guy in Lucas Alexander, who is coming off of a massive loss where he was a minus 500 favorite. He was 9,300 against Sergey in that last fight, and he got dropped in the 1st round. And he got dropped. It was kind of weird. Like, he was backing up. He was just coming off of getting taken down. He got up, and he was kind of backing up, ran, and kind of got caught as the guy was running after him with, I think it was like a right hook or something like that, but put him down cold, and that was really it. Alexander's one of those guys where he actually wants to like pull you in. He's got pretty fast hands. He's got some decent like speed and power for someone who looks a little skinnier and stuff like that. Like, Bogdan's going to look like the bigger fighter in the cage. He's going to look a little stronger and stuff, but Lucas Alexander does have some power in those hands, and he's trying to counter you, which I think makes this an even better fight in general, because Bogdan's the perfect style of fighter for someone like Alexander in theory, because Bogdan gets caught. He's going to come at you, and that's what kind of Alexander wants. I just don't know if Alexander's going to like the pressure and the cardio of Bogdan, because Bogdan's last fight, like, his cardio looked amazing to me. And like I said, even when he got tired in that 3rd round, he didn't give up. in the Dana White Contender Series fight. And he fought someone who I thought was pretty good, and who I thought had a case to maybe win the fight, but it wasn't because Bogdan did anything bad. It was that close of a fight, and it was kind of a war where Dana actually gave both them their win bonus. Before the fight, he called the truck before the fight even ended and said, both these guys are getting their money. So that kind of tells you how fun of a fight Dana thought it was. My pick is going to be Bogdan. I think Luke Alexander is going to have some success because Bogdan is somewhat hittable, but I think in the end, the pressure is going to get to him. And maybe Bogdan finds a finish somewhere in that second or third round here. So that's my take. I got Grod. Where are you at, Dan, with this fight?
So I'm going to take the opposite side, but it's not a particularly strong lean. This fight, I really like targeting both sides of this fight on DraftKings. There's really not much grappling or wrestling upside on either side to speak of, but it's priced affordably. We've got 8,300, 7,900 respectively, and it's going to be high paced. It's going to be a high paced striking battle between two guys who both have power and can both be hurt and put down. So the way I see this playing out, I think somebody's going to die and someone's going to die quickly. So yeah, I mean, I picked Alexander, but again, not a particularly strong lean. I like targeting both sides of this fight.
I agree with you. I think this fight finishes. So
Yep,
whatever
agreed.
side you're on, I think they have a potential to score pretty big. I will say, I think from a DraftKings perspective too, I think if you're looking for more of the wrestling upside, that leans Bogdan. He does a decent job of, even in wars, he'll like change it up a little bit with some takedowns here and there. So I do think he's got that type of like upside if he wanted to throw in some wrestling here. I'm not saying that's what he's going to do to start, but it's nice that he can mix it up a little bit more. I think in this fight.
I actually misspoke because Grad, he shot 7 takedowns in his Contender Series fight, landed 3 of them. So we could see him try to mix in the wrestling. I just think Alexander's going to be able to keep this on the feet. I just don't really envision the wrestling playing a huge factor in here, but I see what you're saying.
I think he kind of needs to do it because I think that's how you kind of get Alexander off his rhythm. It's not just the pace, but I think like him mixing it up like that is a key for him in this fight if he wants to find like a finish, because Alexander just wants to counter you. If you just walk him down and you just come right into him, you let him just pull you into him. That's what he wants. He's waiting for him to counter back with a big shot. So I think you're going to see some level. If Grod has any like good game planning whatsoever, I think you're going to see some level changing earlier. Like I said, in that last fight with Grod, you said he had 7 takedowns. I watched that whole fight over again.
He attempted 7. Yeah.
And I watched that whole fight over again, Dan. None of those takedowns, except for one at the end, were like terrible shots where he was like shooting from far out or desperation. There was only one, and it was at the very end of the fight where it was a shot that he shot from a little far back, and it was kind of a desperation shot. And there was like a minute or a minute and a half left in the round, and it was the 3rd round. But all the other shots were just like kind of changing it up a little bit, throwing the mixed martial arts into it. They weren't desperation. At least from what I saw.
Yeah, for sure. Also of note, Alexander doesn't exactly have the best submission defense. So if the fight does make its way to the ground, then that's definitely points for Grad. I just think that they're mostly going to be looking to strike. And I think on the feet, Alexander does have a slight advantage there.
Yeah, Grad's control is not very great either. So when he gets him down, which is actually kind of good for fantasy, because like if he does attempt 7 takedowns again and he gets a few of them and then gets back up and then they're back, you know what I mean? So, but a lot of stuff can happen from like him getting back up, and you can always get caught. So I do think it's an interesting look, a submission prop or something like that for God. But should be a fun fight. Me and Dan split again on the winner. I'm going Grod, Dan on the Alexander side. Should be a fun fight. Let's go to one of the, I think, more interesting fights in general from a dog side. And I know you have a bet. You posted it in the Discord, I think yesterday. A nice little fun prop bet for the people in our Discord. But Jasmine Jazz Divichus at 8,900 for Jazz Divichus versus Myra Bueno Silva, 7,300 for Silva. Jasmine finally getting in what I would, in my opinion, be like a solid step up after, a couple fights ago losing to Cortez. They kind of pulled her back a little bit. She got 3 more wins, found a finish in the last win against the Silva, which was good. And now they kind of throw back in there in a big step up, in my opinion, with Bueno Silva, who, was coming off of, fighting the champ a couple fights ago and then losing to Chase On when she was, it looked like she was doing decent early and then it was the cut. Like, Dan, how are you approaching this fight? Because I do think it's an interesting style. Jasmine's a wrestler. Myra Bueno Silva has sick grappling. How are you approaching it?
Yeah, this is a fight where I'm probably going to be heavier on the dog. I love Jazz, but there's a lot of fighters up in this top range that I'm going to be targeting. And Bueno Silva, just the price and the ownership, especially on an 11-fight slate, like, we've got them 34 and 17% respectively. Jazz is a primary wrestler. She wants to take you down. She wants to grind out, decision wins. She'll land ground and pound. But the thing with Bueno Silva is, she's very dangerous submission grappler. So when Jazz is taking her down, she's going to have to mind her P's and Q's, not get her neck taken. And then when she's on top of Bueno Silva, she's going to have to look out for, Bueno Silva will throw up tons of submissions from her back, arm bars, knee bars, all that shit. So it's going to be very dicey for Jazz in the area where she wants to take the fight. So I love Bueno Silva as a dog. The bet that I gave out was Bueno Silva by submission. I'm not sure if it's still that, but it's plus 700 on DraftKings. It's been bet down to, I believe, like 475 just about everywhere else. So seems like a bad number to me, way too wide. I really can't poke holes in Jazz, though. If you wanted to play her at chalk, I really don't mind that because Bueno Silva, like I just said, she loves to play jiu-jitsu from her back and try to get subs. So she's not really trying to get up. And if she's not grabbing that submission, that plays right into Jasmine's game. She'll just lay on top of you and beat the shit out of you. So I think that's probably the way it's going to go. I did pick Jasmine despite, taking Bueno Silva by sub, and despite the fact that I probably will have more Bueno Silva because 7,300, if she gets a submission, it's likely to happen early, and she's just going to be straight up nutted.
I think it's kind of wild that Jasmine is this big of a favorite against this type of talent coming off. I mean, like, and I'm one of Jasmine's biggest fans. I think I've picked her in every single one of her fights. And I know she's only lost like 1 or 2 in the UFC. I've literally picked her in every single fight. So I feel like, I've definitely been a Jasmine fan. I've definitely been in her corner. Even when she was, a dog in some of these big fights, I've been on her. She's just she's a really good, I like to pick her more when she's a dog or when it's like a closely lined fight because she doesn't quit on herself. She's tough as hell. And she just goes for it, man. Even when you feel like she's losing, you don't feel like you're out of it with her. That's the best thing about Jasmine. She's aggressive on the ground too with the strikes. So if Myra Bueno Silva does just hang out on her back, she could, if she doesn't find the submission, she's gonna find like some elbows and some serious some cuts from Jasmine. So
yep.
I do think it's a very interesting fight that could go either way with these 2 girls, because I don't think Jasmine's going to be the easiest one to just submit, but Myra Bueno Silva is elite in that type of game. So it's kind of like which game kind of plays out. Can she just ride her out with the wrestling and the ground and pound, or is she more cautious about going to the wrestling, which I don't think she will be because Jasmine's style is just aggressive. I don't think I don't think she's afraid of anyone. And I think she trusts her skills in that way, which makes this fight fun.
I think it would be a big mistake for Jasmine to I don't think she'll be afraid, but it would be a huge mistake for her to want to keep this on the feet too, because Bueno Silva, I think, is better on the feet, definitely has more power on the feet.
Yes.
So yeah, Bueno Silva is the more dangerous fighter here, which to me makes her one of the best dogs to target on the entire slate.
Yeah. And it makes me feel like even though I love Jasmine and I want to pick Jasmine just because I do love the way she fights and her style, I just feel like this line is way too wide for someone who's just recently fought the champ a few fights ago, and now we're putting her in there against Jasmine. And what's Jasmine sitting at right now, Dan? It's like minus 2 something right now.
Let's see. Jasmine is minus 255.
That just seems kind of crazy to me. So I'm going to go Mayra Bueno Silva as my pick. I agree with Dan. I think she's got more of the finishing upside too. So if there's a finish, I feel like she has more of a chance of that. And that plus 700 with the sub, because Jasmine is not going to be afraid to go down there with her, in my opinion. That is very, very live. And that's going to be live the whole fight just because of the way Jasmine fights. Like that's a great, I think, prop here. So yeah, I'm going to be on some Mayra Bueno Silva, and good fight for DFS, right, Dan? I think both girls have upside from a scoring standpoint. Which one are you going to be more on? Are you going to have more Jasmine or Bueno Silva?
I'm going to have more Bueno Silva simply because of price. She's more dangerous and way lower owned.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I don't know. I mean, Jasmine still has a ton of upside though. Because if she's getting takedowns and control time, she's gonna rack up some scoring if she's doing that type of stuff.
And that's the thing too, is Bueno Silva, like we already touched on, like she almost wants to be on her back, and her way of defending takedowns is to jump guillotine, so she's not really going to be trying to stop the takedowns. It sets up perfectly for a nutted score on either side, whoever wins.
Yep, exactly. So good fight to target for DFS. Me and Dan, finally, we agree on a fight after 3. We're going to be both on the Silva. Oh, no, you picked Jasmine. So we are not agreeing on this.
Yeah.
We are not agreeing on this fight because you picked Jasmine, and I'm going to take Bueno Silva. So we are still alive with our streak of fading Dan at every turn. I love it. Let's see here. Sometimes that hurts the person wrestling when the other person jumps the gilly. Yeah, you got to be careful of that gilly, man. And she's got a good one too. So, wait, they don't award the takedown when they jump it.
Sometimes, yeah.
That does happen. Yeah, that does happen. But again, Matt, you're still going to get the control time. You're going to get the ground. You're going to get the ground and pound and stuff like that. So
she's extremely active from top position. So once she gets you there, she's throwing. She's trying.
That's the best thing with Jasmine is she is active. So you don't have to worry about her literally just laying. The worst is when they just lay. Right? They're just laying there, and they'll throw one strike, and then they'll try and position a little bit, and then maybe they'll throw one strike, but that's not Jasmine. So
you're just yelling, do something at your TV. Fucking do something.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that. All right, next fight on the card, we got Demir Gaziev. I definitely didn't say that last name right, but I'm going to go with Demir here versus Terrence McKinney. McKinney 9,200, Demir 7K. Dan, Terrence McKinney let a lot of people down last time out. It was a fun fight for as long as it lasted, 5 seconds or whatever it was. But that's what you get with McKinney fights. It's first round. If it gets into the second round and you have McKinney, that normally does not bode well for you. But he tries to bring the fun and the entertainment for as short a time as it lasts here. He's 9,200 on DraftKings. Demir on the other side, 7K on DraftKings, and hasn't been very active recently. Last fought 2, almost 3 years ago or something like that. and it was the Mark Diakiese fight where he just got wrestle fucked for 3 rounds. Like literally, Diakiese. There were a couple times where maybe he was close to a submission, but like he wasn't really like doing that. He was literally just wrestling him and controlling him. Anytime they got back up to his feet too, it was kind of takedown, and he would take him down and he'd hold him there for almost a full round. So Demir's like takedown defense, not good. And his get up game is definitely not good. Terrence McKinney could find a quick victory if he decides to wrestle. But the thing with Terrence McKinney is I just don't know. I never know what he's going to do. Sometimes he goes out there and he wants to wrestle a little bit and take you down. Sometimes he wants to just strike with you. So it's a tough thing, but I got to go with Terrence McKinney here. Demir's just, I don't know how you can take him with how bad his takedown defense is. Like if Terrence wants to do that, I think he could find an easy sub.
Definitely. The side is definitely McKinney. You can't bet it because, the number is way too huge. But yeah, the thing with McKinney is if he doesn't get you out within the first 5 minutes, then he's in trouble because he's a gasser and he's the definition of a killer be killed type of guy. Like love to target both sides of fights that he's in because he's either going to go out there and flatline you and hospital 130 your ass, or he's going to gas out and you're going to be able to finish him. I don't think any of his fights have ever gone to decision. I think all of his wins have ended in the first round. So the ownership is going to be there. I actually, Hadzovic, you touched on it. The takedown defense is terrible. The one thing he can do is survive. The only person to ever submit him is Renato Moicano back in 2020. So I don't ding him too badly for that. If he can survive McKinney on the ground or not get knocked out, then, once you get into the second or third round against Terrence McKinney, you've got a shot. He's going to be 15% owned. I'm not going to go crazy with it, but 7K, 15% on an 11-fight slate going up against a guy who's got 5 minutes of cardio. I'm happy to get on that. I'll have a ton of McKinney as well, just because, he's explosive. He has a clear wrestling and grappling advantage. It's just, you can never count his opponent out because of that cardio issue.
Yeah, no, I like that take because, like you said, if it does get out of the first round, I think the opponent becomes very much live. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have more Terrence McKinney just because I kind of like as we talk about more fights, I'm gonna like some more dogs, and so I need to really get on some of the few favorites that I like, Dan. So that's just gonna cause me to like probably more load up on the McKinney side and have less of Demir. But I do like your take in general of like, he's not just someone I would just completely throw out because there is a path. The path is him lasting a round or a round and a half. And if he does that, he is very much live from that point. So
yeah, McKinney will likely, him and Pavlovich will likely be the two highest owned fighters on the slate. So you're getting great leverage.
Got to debunk a few things. Dan's got a lady, so I think he owned you there, Londo. And then my guy, the Spandard. What's up, brother? How are you? Good to see you in the chat. Beanair's here, so and Joe Ruff, so we can start. We're not going to start over Joe Ruff. I appreciate you though, and you can go back and watch this, and easy enough after we finish and
go back, hit the 2X, and catch up.
Yeah, just skip through the parts where we talked about the Eagles because no one wants to hear that shit. You know what I mean? No one wants to hear about the Eagles. So skip through those parts and you'll be good to go. We got our boy Stevie Boynton in chat too. What's going on, Stevie Boynton? He's pumped for the boys. Who's the 3.5 of the day? He says. Dan, do you have a plus 3.5 bet? We might be jumping the gun a little bit, but Steve's here and he asked, so we can jump the gun.
And I don't really usually go in for like spread bets, but I don't know. I think Magomedov and Page is going to be a pretty close fight. I hadn't thought about the plus 3.5s too much, but I think
I'll give you two, Dan. I think that both Oliveira and Page are good plus 3.5 guys. I think both those guys. I think both those guys can definitely win a round.
Yeah,
so
I think Page. Page would be my guy for the plus.
I think he's the best of the two too. 100%.
That fight is, I mean, it opened. I don't know.
That fight is the weirdest fight ever to me. I like. There must be a ton of Saudi money coming in on Shara or something like that. I don't get why he's. We'll get to it because I know it's closed in a little bit on Page, right?
It has, yeah. He's been taking it, but not much. I mean, this opened.
Right, we'll get there. Let's not go too far into it.
Boynton throwing us off track.
That's all right. It's Steve. Steve's the man.
Yes.
All right, let's get to the next fight on the card. We've got Shamil Gaziev. Gaziev 9,300 on DraftKings here versus Thomas Peterson. Thomas Peterson 6,900. Coming off fights against Usman and Jamal Poges. Lost to Jamal Poges, then beats Usman, and now they throw him in there against Gaziev, Dan, who is coming off of a win against Danto Mays. Before that, he lost to Rozenstruik and beat Boudet. So both these guys kind of, I feel like they've had some, like at least the tough loss, I guess, in general. But I do feel like for Peterson, it's definitely more of a step up in competition here. I think Shamil's just kind of got him. I think he's going to get him up against the fence. I think he's going to be able to keep him kind of up against there. And I view him as the more dangerous guy for sure than Thomas Peterson. So I'm going to go with Shamil. I don't really like Thomas Peterson at all. Losing to Jamal Poges, just beating Usman, like those were close, but I can't go with that. I'm Shamil all day. What about you?
I think this line is pretty wide, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm also on the Gaziev side. I mean, Gaziev is more dangerous on the feet for sure. He's got better wrestling, I think. Peterson, he's a good wrestler. He's got a pretty good, like, credentialed wrestling background, but I just think Gaziev will be too much for him. But we have a kind of a similar dynamic as the previous fight where both of these guys have really bad fucking cardio, man. So once we get outside of the first round, it's gonna, if you've got a lot of Gaziev or you're holding a Gaziev ticket, like you're gonna be clenched because this dude just like he just doesn't have the gas. I mean, neither of them do. So I think
but you just gave the winner without even you just said that Shamil has better wrestling than Peterson, and Peterson's game is wrestling.
Yeah. Well, that's why I picked Gaziev. But
yeah,
shit happens when you get tired. I think either of these guys could just completely gas out, and you could see a finish that is just one guy completely exhausting himself. And
maybe.
But I think way more often than not, it's going to be Gaziev. But I don't mind mixing in Peterson because it's just when you got a guy who's got such a bad gas tank, it's really hard to rely on them. And it makes their opponent viable, in my opinion.
That's fair. I mean, I do think from a DFS side, Shamil might not be the best play because if he doesn't get an early finish, I don't know how well he's going to score at that 9,300 price tag. So I think if we're not talking betting and we're just or picks or whatever, and we're talking the DFS angle, are you higher on Shamil? I kind of talked about it, how like I need to play some of these expensive guys that I actually like, but I do think he's a tough pull just because of the fact that I don't know, like unless he gets that early finish and this fight ends in a first round finish, like for him, how well is he going to score, Dan? I just don't know if it's going to be that great.
So outside of the main event, Gaziev is going to be one of my biggest buys on the slate. He's the lowest owned 9K option.
Which
it looks
makes
like
sense.
One of the lowest owned. So he's one of the lowest owned 9K options, and he's got some of the best inside the distance odds on the slate. Obviously, McKinney and Pavlovich below him have much better inside the distance odds, but we need to find ways to get different on an 11 fight slate. So I like mixing in Gaziev. I like using him heavily. I am not a Thomas Peterson believer, really, despite his wrestling credentials. A lot of it has to do with the fact that Peterson is more or less completely lost on the feet, and Gaziev has he throws in combination. He's got good power. He's much, much better on the feet. So,
dude, Gaziev lost to Rozenstruik, who's actually a good fighter and is great stand up. He's got good hands. And that's completely different to Thomas Peterson losing to Jamal Poges, in my opinion.
Absolutely, yeah. This is a really big step up for Peterson and a step down for Gaziev as well, which feels intentional. They're out in Saudi. Gaziev's name ends in a V, so they're setting him up.
Yeah, they're definitely setting him up, and you got to be careful with that. But all right, we're both on the Gaziev side, and 9,300. We will both have some using Gaziev heavily, no pun intended, for our guy Anthony. That's fair. Peter's going to be a popular dog. I hope so. I hope he is. I think there's a lot of good dogs on this slate. I just don't see him as being one of them. So, all right, let's go to the next fight here. We got Con Oley 7,200 on DraftKings versus Muhammad Naimov. Naimov 9K on DK right now. Dan, what are we seeing here with Naimov? I think he's a pretty popular favorite that people are trying to load up on. What's his popularity in terms of like DFS ownership, and do you like him here in this matchup?
I've got him around 30% owned, so he is one of the more popular options on the slate. Naimov has had a really weird sort of tenure in the UFC so far. The dude is just a walking foul. He's just constantly fouling guys and getting away with it. And we say it all the time. Like, if you're in the UFC and you're not fouling, like, what the fuck are you doing? Because they're never going to punish you, grab the cage, poke eyes, kick dudes in the junk. Like, it doesn't matter. You can do whatever the fuck you want, and they will almost never take away a point. But beyond that, Naimov is going to have the size and strength advantage here. I think he's going to have the advantage on the feet. Hopefully, he's probably the better grappler, so I'm not going to completely ignore him. But I think the side here I just think, my pick is Naimov. I'm going to be over the field on Naimov. I'm going to be slightly over on Oley too, just because Oley does have grappling upside, and I think he can find a finish on the ground. I just don't think it's very likely. So I like this fight. I think Oley is one of the better dogs to target just from a DFS perspective, even though I think he's got some physical limitations and disadvantages. And, we just watched him get flatlined by Marion Santos, was it? I believe that's who it was. So, yeah, I mean, both sides are viable, but I am pretty firmly on the Naimov side, even though as a talent, I don't love him. I just think the physicality is going to play a pretty big factor here.
Yeah, I just don't think Oley is going to be able to wrestle Naimov for 3 rounds and be able to like keep up in that aspect. Small. Yeah, I just don't see it. I think Naimov does win this fight. Now, can he find a finish? I do think he's live to find a finish too. So, yeah, I'm cool with Naimov. I think he's got some upside. He's got some power. And he's skilled, man. I mean, yeah, he definitely he'll foul. I mean, again though, like you said, if you're not going to stop them, why are they not fouling more? Like if you're not going to take a point, if you're going to let him grab the cage or poke the dude in the eye, like they're never going to stop. So the UFC in general just has to start, I think, either just getting more like serious about it. Like, if you do these things, like, we give you 1 warning and that's it. Like, it's different than a accidental kick in the groin. You know what I mean? It's different than that. When you're like constantly when you're poking dude in the eye multiple times, you're grabbing the cage on takedowns as you're going down multiple times. Like, that's a point. Like, you should just take a point.
They basically all, you start every fight with a warning, because in the back, before you even go out there to fight, they go over the rules. And essentially, like, that's your first warning. So the first warning you see in the cage is the second warning. So beyond that, they really should start taking points, but they don't.
Yeah, I agree with you. They definitely need to. You get the warning before you walk in, like you said, and then you get that 1 warning in the cage. Outside of like I said, the groin strikes are a little different, because I don't think, maybe there are a couple guys that are tired that do it just because they can't breathe and they need to catch their breath or something like that. So they kick. I don't think most of the time they're kicking dudes in the groin on purpose, Dan.
Right. I don't think Naimov is going out there and fouling intentionally. Like, I don't want that misconstrued. Like, I don't think he's going out there intentionally trying to be a dirty
I think he's naturally grabbing the cage intentionally when he's starting to feel like he's falling down.
Yeah, the cage grabbing is one thing. I think that is also just kind of a natural reaction to, like, someone is trying to throw you down on the ground and you just try to grab on to whatever you can to stay up. But as far as illegal strikes go, I don't think many, if any, guys are going out there intentionally hitting guys with illegal strikes. But at the same time, like, you got to be in control of your weapons. And if you're not, you should be penalized or punished in some way.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so we're both on the Naimov side here. 30% ownership. Are you trying to get, if you're MMEing this, card, are you trying to get over on that? Or are you trying to stay at the field or below?
I'm getting over on Naimov without even really trying. Like, I just ran a basic couple crunches with my projections, and I'm getting a bunch of Naimov. So I'm happy to stick with that as well.
All right. Next fight here on the card. Pretty solid fight too. We got Frost Zham 7,800 on DraftKings here versus Mike Davis, 8,400 for Davis. This line's sitting about minus 148. Mike Davis is on DraftKings Sportsbook right now. Zham sitting a plus 124. Underdog. Zham coming off the destruction of Matt Frivola, which I got very much wrong. Now he gets Mike Davis, who is much better, I think, than Matt Frivola. I think his skills are much better, especially when it comes to the ground game. But he's got power. I think Davis is really good. Granted, I've gotten Zham wrong a couple times, so not the guy that I have the best record picking against, just for the record. But I am going to go Mike Davis. I think Mike Davis has more upside from a DFS perspective too. But I do like him to win this fight. I really like him if he can get this fight to the ground. If this fight can get to the ground, which I think he can get this fight to the ground, I think he's definitely got an edge in that department there. So, Dan, I'm going with the Davis side. Where are you at here with Zham and Davis?
So I picked the Zham side, but this is another fight here where the side I picked and the side that I favor for DFS are opposite sides. Like, I think Davis is clearly the better DraftKings play. He's got high volume striking and high volume wrestling. So he's got a pretty high floor and a pretty high ceiling, even in decision wins. He doesn't even need to find a finish, especially at 8,400. The reason I picked Zham, though, is every time we've seen Zham hit the cage, he's just getting better and better every time. And granted, last time we saw Zham, it was against Matt Frivola, but who can be knocked out by a stiff breeze at this point. But that was one of the knockout of the year contenders. Just a vicious fucking KO that, like, I jumped out of my seat and ran around my fucking house because I'm pretty sure I picked Zham to win inside the distance, and a lot of people were giving me shit. I don't think he's going to win inside the distance. What's that?
I think you did. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Zham wins by decision here, which makes me less excited to roster him, especially at this ownership. He's going to be picking up about 24%. There are other dogs here that are cheaper and are going to be lower owned that I think have more finishing equity. So if the field is going to if they're going to gravitate towards Zham, probably based off of his last performance, then I'm happy to come in. I don't hate coming in with the field. Let's see what I got on my initial runs here. I actually do have more Zham than Davis on my initial runs, so I'll probably have to
It's biased, Dan.
I'll probably have to go in there and boost Davis a bit.
Manually adjust.
Yeah, do some manual adjustments tonight. But yeah, I'm on Zham, but I think Davis is definitely the better DraftKings play.
Yeah, but I mean, Matt, why can't Davis I think he can take Zham down. I definitely can. I definitely can think he can do that. And I think that's his biggest path. But again, he does have power too. I mean, he's like, he's a pretty solid all-around fighter. So
he's getting better every time. And, usually the thing about Zham is historically, he hasn't really shown much wrestling or grappling upside, but he took Frivola down 4 times last fight. So it's possible that part of his game is evolving. He's still another reason why I picked Zham is, Zham's a younger fighter. Every time we see him, he should be improving. Davis, he's getting older. He's not the most active, and he's kind of made his bones off of fighting a really low level of competition, whereas Zham is, kind of stepping up. So I like this step up for Zham. I think he is up to the task, but don't love Zham as a DraftKings play.
I like it. All right. Let's go to the next fight here on the card. I'm pumped for this fight here. We got Said Nurmagomedov, minus 170 favorite on DraftKings Sportsbook versus Vinicius Oliveira, sitting plus 142. And Oliveira right now, 7,500 on DraftKings, and Said 8,700 on DraftKings here, Dan. This is going to be a fun fight. Both guys, they like to stand up. Obviously Saed's got nasty kicks. Just absolute, that the front leg, he does a lot of damage with it. It's quick. A lot of guys, it's tough to see coming, but if you can withstand him a little bit and push him into deeper waters, that's how I think you can beat someone like Said Nurmagomedov. And even in his last loss in the UFC, which was to Jonathan Martinez a couple fights ago, I thought it was a very close fight. I thought, Nurmagomedov, if they raised his hand, I wouldn't have had too much of an argument with it. I did think Jonathan Martinez did squeak it out, and it was kind of just grit. You know what I mean? It was gritty. And it was just kind of changing things up a little bit, not just standing there the whole time with them. And, he got into some spots with Nurmagomedov where, the grappling is dangerous with Said. So you got to be careful of it. But if you can withstand the grappling, which a lot of guys can't, a lot of guys, when they get in the grappling situations with him, just panic, and he catches them because he's got nasty front chokes. He's got nasty gilly, and it's sick. He'll snatch that thing up quick. You got to be really careful with your neck. I don't think Oliveira is going to have an issue with it. I think what Oliveira is just going to do is I think he's going to stay on the pressure because he's a pressure guy. He's not necessarily a volume guy, but that empty pressure where he's constantly kind of moving forward. And he's got that weird style too, where it's kind of like with Nurmagomedov's leg, where you don't really see it coming sometimes, but with his arms, because his hands are down and they come from different angles and shit like that. And he's big for the weight class. He's a very tough guy, I feel to get a beat on. And I do think he's got a path to winning this fight. I don't think this fight finishes inside the distance, though. I think it goes to the cards, and that's the one thing I'm worried about with Oliveira in Saudi. I think it's a close fight. I think it's probably a split decision. I want to pick Oliveira, though, because I really like his game. I just don't know if he's going to get the split call where we're going here, Dan. So I think Said, if you make me pick a winner, I think I'm going to pick Said. But I do think Oliveira is very live. I think he's very live, and he's got the skills to get it done. I actually like him more as a DraftKings play too, just in general, because of his price tag and the fact that I do think it's a decision. And if he does win a decision, I think he would score better, obviously. So that's a long way of going. I'm picking Said, but I'll probably have more Oliveira in DFS.
It's really interesting, and this is a running theme of the card where I pick someone to win but want to play the other side more, and I'm actually the opposite of you. So I picked Oliveira to win, but I'll have more Said Nurmagomedov. This is just a fight where I'm gonna want to be on both sides, but Oliveira is gonna be one of the. I think he's actually the highest owned dog, so you're gonna be getting some leverage by going over to Nurmagomedov. And when it comes down to it, Nurmagomedov is probably the more technically skilled on the feet and in the grappling. And as Matt and Chad has pointed out, Oliveira has had he's looked really good against Simone. Great comeback win with vicious, violent knockout over Poges, but he had a distinct size advantage in both of those matchups that he will not have in this matchup. The thing I like about Oliveira, though, is that he does seem to be he's wild, and he's like the more dangerous of the two on the feet. So I think he's very live to get the knockout, and that's what I picked. But as far as DFS goes, Saeed, he's got grappling upside. He's very dangerous on the mat, and he's a favorite who's going to be lower owned than the dog. And that's usually a spot that I love to target.
Yep. It makes it. Oh man, I want to switch my pick. I want to go with Oliveira.
The line has moved. Oliveira.
You're right. You're right. I'm going with Oliveira. I switched my pick here. I like them anyways.
All right.
I still don't know if it's a close fight, if he's going to get that the close call over there, but I'm going to go with them because you laid out all good points. And honestly, I think he's really just a hard guy to figure out the way his style is. I think it's just a tough style. I'm not saying he's MVP, like in that style of being like super unhittable, but I think he's got a weird style like it that makes it hard for guys to figure out, like early in fights when they're trying to get reads on guys. And I think he's just a tough guy to get those reads on and stuff like that. So
he's not been getting hit. He's pretty sound defensively.
Except for the leg kick. He's right. He had but he fought through it. I will say his leg was busted and he fought through it. In his, I think it was his last fight, right? Where he had the leg issue and going into the third round, and the doctor even checked it, right? The doctor came over and he was like, he was like jumping on it and stuff, like, dude, I'm fine. Like they're making sure it's broken. It's like, I'm good. Like, let me fight and stuff. So
he's a dog, man. He's a dog.
Yeah, he's tough. He's tough. All right. We're both on the same side there. Oliveira, pumped up 7,500. Good little dog play here. Let's go to the next fight on the card here. Big boys. We're back with the big boys, Dan. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, 7,100 for Rozenstruik versus Sergey Pavlovich, 9,100 on DraftKings. Coming off of 2 losses in a row for Sergey, which obviously probably in his career has never happened, right? He's only had 3 losses here. Yep. So that's interesting with him. He's sitting minus 290 on DraftKings Sportsbook right now. Jairzinho Rozenstruik sitting at plus 235 here. Dan, I got a fun little prop bet for the people in this fight, but I'm going to throw it to you first here. What do you like with this fight? I assume you're on the Sergey side.
Yeah, I picked Sergey inside the distance. It's pretty simple to me. Pavlovich has the death touch. He's had a kind of rough last 2 fights, but I think he can be forgiven for getting knocked out by Tom Aspinall, because Aspinall is an absolute fucking monster and is the rightful heavyweight champion, despite all the bullshit going on with John Jones. He got outpointed. Volkov is just very good. I think Volkov, his last time out, Volkov has been improving massively. So I don't think there's any shame in losing to Volkov either. I like Roz, but I don't think he's quite on the level of an Aspinall or Volkov. And he's going to be at a massive size disadvantage. Pavlovich has, he's got 1 inch height advantage, but a 6-inch reach advantage. So given that Roz sort of he's got the kickboxing style where he kind of wants to fight from the outside, which he was able to do really effectively against Gaziev and Tuivasa, he's not going to be able to do that against Pavlovich. He's going to have to try to close the distance with Pavlovich, and that's dangerous as fuck. Because like I said before, Pavlovich just has that death touch. So that's what I'm going to go with. He's going to be super high owned. I don't mind getting there with the field at all. 42% seems totally reasonable to me.
All right. I'm going to go the opposite way of you. I'm going to take Rozenstruik here. I think a fun bet too is the plus 800 by decision, because I think if he wins this fight, it's him staying away from that death touch, kind of circling away, using his, quick in and out. He does have good hands too. That's the one thing with him. He's got quick hands. He's got to stay away from that power shot, obviously. So he's got to be very quick being in and out of there. And I think he can do it. I think he can circle off, Try and stay away from that power shot and just touch and move. If he can do that, which I think he can for 3 rounds, and just stay away from that death touch, like you said, and frustrate Sergey, because that's what's going to frustrate him when he can't get to you. And Volkov did a really good job of it. I think Volkov also was kind of familiar with him a little bit more, but still, I think he gave the better blueprint on how to beat Sergey than like Tom. I like Tom. No one's doing that to what Tom did. I don't think anyone else is doing that to Sergey. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I think Volkov gave a better way for other people to try and beat Sergey. I think Rozenstruik's a fun dog from that perspective. Now, again, the way I see him winning, I don't think it scores amazing in DraftKings. I think it's kind of close to the way he beat or like the score he beat Tui with. You know, he's getting like 60 to 70 fantasy points, and he just kind of out touches him and frustrates Sergey there. So I don't. He's not like the greatest DFS play, but I'll still have some just because, you know, I am going to pick him to win. But the plus 800 decision is my fun. That's like one of my fun prop bets this week. I got 2 of them there, 2 or 3 of them. I like the one you posted with Bueno Silva sub. I think that's a fun one too. But this is going to be one of my fun ones, plus 800 on Big Boy.
So I think Rozenstruik also, I don't want to totally discount his knockout ability. He's got pretty solid power, and he's got some of the best inside the distance. He actually has the best inside the distance odds out of anybody in this 7K range. So I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility that Rozenstruik can find a finish on Pavlovich. Pavlovich has been hurt and knocked out before. And you know, Rozenstruik can get there. Absolutely. I'm not going to ignore him at all. I really strongly feel like Pavlovich is going to find the finish here and find it very quickly.
Well, honestly, I think if he doesn't find it quickly, he's going to get frustrated.
Oh,
like
yeah.
all of his wins, he's doing it quick. Yeah, it's first round. And, you know, if you can get out of that first round with him, like that's the way you got to do it. Even if somehow you drop the first round, like if you can just stay away from that, force him into that second round where he's got to sit down for a sec. He's got to think about things, maybe question himself a little bit. And, you know, like that's the way you got to beat him. You know, he's a big favorite. I don't know, you know, Big T says Rozenstruik wears condoms. I mean, maybe he does. Maybe he does wear condoms, but I'm gonna take a fun stab. Don't make fun of my plus 800 bet, Big T. You fucking puss. Okay, Dan, listen to this. So I got a Big T story that just this is Big T in a nutshell here. So I'm at his house. I think Mangone's there. AP. You know, we're all watching the fights, right? This was a couple years ago at his house, a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. And I'm giving winners, Dan. Like, I mean, I'm giving, like, I rattled off in AP. If he's watching, he can attest to this. I gave like 8 straight winners in a row, Dan. And I don't mean like, you know, Rozenstruik money line or Syed Nurmagomedov money line or something. I'm talking like 8 straight winners, and I'm giving you like the sub prop. I'm giving you plus 700 sub. I'm giving you plus 450 decision. I'm not just picking money line and shit. So I'm rolling through all of these, right? I'm rolling through. And AP's over there. He's betting like, you know, just like $100 a thing. And he's you know, he's winning tons of money or something like that. I'm winning a bunch of money. And I see Big T over there, and I'm looking at him. I'm going, dude, I go, you got to be up a ton right now. And he goes, yeah, but I've just been betting the money line and stuff, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you are the biggest puss I've ever met in my life. Are you kidding me? I'm giving all these winners like over and over, like 8 straight we're sitting at, and you can't even bet what I'm giving you. And I'm like saying it to like the whole, like everyone that's standing there. I'm like, this is what we're betting. And then he just bets the money line, like the biggest wuss ever.
It's not very cash money of you, Big T.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Okay. Dan is always. I'll tell you right now. Dan would be betting the plus 800 with me if I rattled off 7 in a row next to Dan. I guarantee you he would have jumped on the train at least after the second one. He would have jumped on the train for 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Unlike somebody who just keeps betting the money line. Big Puss. I'm changing your nickname. When it comes to MMA, you're Big Puss DFS 44. No one's, I'm changing it. QQ who shipped DFS that night. You did ship DFS that night. I forgot about that. And that was one of the things, another thing JSU did was in the morning, I ran over to Big T and I told him exactly how our boy, who is the dude's name? Now I'm blanking on it. The dude who was in the UFC, he was boring, so he left, and then he came back, and he's rattled off a few straight wins in a row, Dan. And he got a few subs in a row.
Yeah, I remember that.
What's his name? God damn it.
That was the Nami Yunus Hebus fight.
Oh, my God. I'm picturing him, too. I'm like literally in my head, I'm like picturing him, and I can't think of his name.
That was.
I just keep thinking Zham in my head, and it's not Zham.
It was. What the fuck is this guy?
Right when you say his name, I'm gonna think about it too. Oh, this is pissing me off.
Yusuf Zalal.
Yusuf Zalal, exactly. So this was his first fight back in a while, I think, and he was like plus, I don't know, 700 for a sub. 700. I said, in that morning before this happened, I ran over to Big T. I said, Big T, this dude, he was like 7,700, 70, something like that. I said, this dude's gonna win. He's gonna win by finish, and I think he's gonna submit him and stuff like that. Big T ends up shipping DFS partly because I made him stop tinkering with his teams and go to his surprise party that he didn't realize too was a surprise party because I was like, I'm hungry. Let's go. So I made him stop. So Big T, you can thank me for making you stop tinkering with your teams. You didn't touch it after that and you ended up shipping. So I want to thank you as well, not just for giving you Yusuf Zalal, but for then forcing you to get up off the computer and stop tinkering. And you ended up shipping. So I deserve even more of a thank you now that I think about it.
Yeah, sounds like that was more you than him. So
I mean, seriously, I'd be listen, if I didn't do anything, that's fine. Say it. But I had a lot to do, I feel like, with that winner. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not asking for a piece. Listen, I'm not asking for a piece of the win. I was just saying, give the man some credit here. That's all I'm saying. Damn. Get no credit in this fucking place. This is what I have to deal with, Dan. Every day, I got to deal with this bullshit. All right, me and Dan are split here. I got the guy wearing condoms, and Dan's got the dude playing the slots before fights, like 30 minutes before fights. He's playing the slot machine here.
Yeah, that was before the Blades fight.
Dude, that's just bad. He definitely does that all the time, just like playing the slots before.
It's awesome. I think I'm pretty sure I was on the Blade side, and then I saw that slot picture, and I was like, I'm in fucking trouble, dude. I nearly switched. I was like, I don't know. This guy is like far too casual to not be absolutely fucking locked in right now, you know?
Yeah, no, I was definitely on the Sergey side in the Blades fight for sure.
Well, then Blades decides to try to stand with him, which I still is just
dumbest thing ever. Dumbest thing ever. But again, Tom Aspinall and Volkov, Tom Aspinall should be the champ. That's another thing I agree with you on. Like, if you can't fight Tom Aspinall, then just give him the championship.
I don't think that ever happens either. Me and JBC go back and forth on this quite a bit. Do you think
he has a better chance of fighting Alex Pereira?
Who, Jones?
Yes.
I mean, yes, because the chances he fights Tom Aspinall are fucking zero.
Why do you think he has a better chance of fighting? If you had to guess, why do you think
that's the money fight? That's the money fight, you know? Like John Jones, for all his faults,
agree.
I
think there's another reason.
For all his faults as a human being, he's not stupid, but it's also a much more winnable fight for him, and it's the more marquee match.
Why?
because Pereira can't wrestle.
He's got more of an advantage, right?
Yeah, it's massive wrestling and grappling advantage. massive.
Exactly. And I'm sorry. Like, I think he might be a better wrestler than Tom, but does he have that much of is the gap as wide is more my question with someone like Tom. And Dan, we've seen a lot more videos of Pereira practicing his wrestling. In his grappling? Is that maybe because there's a possibility of down the line we get something like that?
Could be. I mean, he's got the Ankalaev fight coming up, so
well, that's another reason why he's doing that, obviously. But
if
he wins this fight, it's a bigger payday in general if he wins this fight. So
yeah, but I also wouldn't be surprised to never see Jones in the octagon again.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Fuck you, Tony. Appreciate you being there. You're my guy. All right, let's go. We got 2 more fights left on the card. Next fight here, Shara Magomedov, 8,800 for Magomedov versus Michael Venom Page. This fight right now, it's very interesting. It's starting to close in Page's favor here. Page sitting at plus 164. Shara sitting a minus 198 favorite in this spot here. Dan, what are you seeing here with this line, and who do you like in this fight?
Well, so Shara actually opened up as the underdog, and now he's nearly a 2-1 favorite. I'm going to side with the market here. I'm going to take Shara, and a lot of it just comes down to he just produces more offense. MVP is very he's got that sort of karate style where he's got that sideways stance, and he kind of just darts in with one shot, darts back out to get out of danger, whereas Shara is just coming forward at you and blasting these kicks. He's throwing tons of volume. I've been fading Shara pretty much since he came into the UFC because, for one thing, he's got one fucking eye. For another thing, he's got no wrestling or grappling. But I don't think that's really going to, the wrestling and grappling isn't going to come into, it's not going to come into the equation in this fight because neither of these guys do wrestling or grappling. It's just going to be a straight, basically kickboxing match. And while I respect MVP's skill and think he's probably the more technical, experienced fighter, I'm going to go on the side of youth and volume here. And I'm going to take Shara.
Best analysis ever, at least I've heard on a show, is he's got one fucking eye. It's just the best thing ever. I kind of just want to leave it at he's got one fucking eye. I'm taking MVP, is just gonna go after that one fucking eye that he has. But I just don't get this line, and maybe I'm crazy, but Michael Venom Page is the better striker.
Yeah.
Just overall, he's the better striker. Maybe not better kicker, but better striker. He's the faster striker. Kevin Holland, after one round, went over to his corner, and his corner's giving him advice, and he's literally telling his corner he's not there. He's faster than I thought. Kevin Holland, who hates to wrestle and grapple, even though he's got good grappling, he hates to do it, and he tried to do that. So you're telling me Michael Page made Kevin Holland, who hates to do that, and then he made Ian Gary, who's technical striker, stands with everyone, blah, 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 blah. He made Ian Gary be the grappler. I'm telling you right now, Ian Gary thought he had the speed advantage. He did not. Kevin Holland, I think going into that fight, thought he could maybe have the speed advantage. He did not. Shara does not have the speed advantage when it comes to those hands. And those hands, he closes that distance faster than anyone I've seen. He's that quick at closing the distance. The one other thing that I noticed about Shara too is, even though what you were saying before about he comes forward, he also can get backed up against the cage a decent amount. Arman early in that fight caught him multiple times because their game plan was him to go forward. And early in that fight, Arman was having success pushing him backwards, which is what you kind of want with like a kicker and stuff like that. You want to push them backwards, make them go backwards. And he was having a lot of success because Shara is hittable. Shara is pretty hittable. He also throws like a lot of naked kicks. And you got to be really careful about throwing just a naked low leg kick with someone like Michael Page, because he's going to eat that kick, but what he's going to also do is he's going to counter. Right when you throw that kick, you're going to see him just come from that backhand is going to come right to your chin, and he's so long. And if Michael Venom Page can get him backing up early and you start to see him throw low naked leg kicks, I guarantee you he's going to catch Chara on the chin with something if he does that stuff. So I think Michael Venom Page has a chance to win this fight. I think he has a chance to finish this fight too, even though the volume's not great. He hurt Kevin Holland pretty bad. He hurt Ian Gary to the point where he made him a grappler. I think he's just going to be too fast. And again, I haven't gotten Chara right, so fade at your will because I've not gotten this dude right. I've faded him multiple times. I will continue to fade him, though, because like Dan said, he's got one fucking eye. And I think he's just the slower fighter who does not have as good a hand speed as Michael Page. And like you said, he's not going to be able to fall back on grappling. That's the other thing that's key in this fight. So if he finds out he's at a speed advantage loss, Dan, what does he do? He can't grapple.
No, he absolutely can't. Yeah, and to your point, I mean, I think like Chara does have more finishing equity, but I also think this goes to decision. So as far as DFS goes, I am not really a fan of this fight. It's just going to be a straight kickboxing match. And I think if Michael Page can have his way sort of at all, the way he fights, he's going to be limiting engagements, which, you know, I've been more or less fading Chara in DFS, and he's made me pay for it just because he is a very one-dimensional striker. He's just been, you know, he's been piling up volume and finding finishes. I'm not so sure he's going to be able to do that in this matchup, and he just gets higher and higher.
He's not, because he's not going to be able to hit Michael Venom Page except for with low kicks and maybe some body kicks. But like I said, those are the kicks Michael Page kind of wants him to throw because I think he's going to counter off of those low kicks.
But so the kind of fight we're envisioning here, pretty much just a straight kickboxing match. It's probably
scores terrible.
It's probably
unless a finish.
And it's probably going to go the distance. It's probably going to be close. And I know I've spoken out on this show before against the idea that there is, you know, a lot of home cooking going on.
Say it, Dan. Say there's home cooking.
Man, in Saudi Arabia, that region of the world, I think I give a little more credence to the home cooking.
I mean, if that's baked into the line, then fine, because nothing else makes sense to me of why this dude is almost a 2-1 favorite against Michael Page, who, like I said, has fought Ian Gary and Kevin Holland. And I don't care what you think of Ian Gary. These are good fighters, man. They're not. These are great fighters that he's fighting. And, I mean, listen, you can make the case that if he doesn't make one or two mistakes with Ian Gary and the fight stays on the feet, he's the winner in that fight.
Yeah, we bet Gary heavily that night. And
yes, we did.
We were fucking clenched at multiple
I was praying. I was like, please stay on the ground. Please stay on because we knew if it got back up to the feet, Ian Gary figured it out quick that he was at a disadvantage.
That was one of the bigger bets I've ever made, and I was sweating bullets. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not counting MVP out at all, but I think in a close kickboxing match, I have to side with the dude who's going to throw.
This is why, though, Dan, I'm going to probably just bet the KO. Because for MVP, because it's plus 700, and I kind of feel like that's his best out. Because if not, then I'm betting on the home cooking. So I think if you're unsure of this fight and you don't like the MVP side and you kind of side with Dan more that it's just a decision fight, then just bet fight to go to decision. Like I don't know what it is right now. I'm sure it's
like minus 190, I think. Maybe it's minus 200 now. It's been moving. Yeah, it's minus 200 now.
It's minus 200.
Yeah. If it goes to decision, I think it's almost gotta be Magomedov. Like
again, unless he can't touch him. Like unless he literally can't touch him, like which is possible.
Yeah. It is. How long can MVP fight in this style, though? You know, he's coming up on 37 years old.
Dude, I just don't. Char doesn't have the hands to like.
No,
he's got to do it with his feet, and I don't think that's going to be the case here. So,
another positive for Shara though is that he can just throw those kicks out there, and there really isn't much threat of a takedown from MVP. So
no, there's no threat of a takedown, but there's a threat of that right hand just coming straight down the friggin' line, and it's fast.
He does have
and
sick power.
And they talk about it too. Like, he's weird because like he'll like leave his feet at times, which they don't teach you to do. But like, again, he's another guy. Like, his style is just, I don't know how you can like train for his style. Like, it's probably very hard to train for someone like him. And I think that makes him 10 times harder to fight and figure out.
I mean, you saw Holland get like beyond fucking frustrated with him.
Dude, I mean, how many times do you see in a corner, like they're giving him advice and he's literally telling him like he's not there. Yeah, he's not there. That's crazy. Like, so I think this is a good point by Matt too. Page coming up from 170, going to be fast, and he isn't sacrificing length. He's still a 6-inch reach advantage. That's a good point. Like the speed advantage, no matter what, was going to be in his favor, but that makes it even better. I think that he's not sacrificing any of that speed. So
I think it's going to be a really fun fight to watch, but I'm really not too interested on the DFS side. So I'm sure Shara will find a way to burn me once again at, you know, massive fucking ownership as usual.
I'm fading Shara. I'm sure he's going to be popular. I'm fading him.
Yeah, I'm probably coming in light on him too.
Fade him and his one eye, Dan. We're fading his ass. So I think it is bullshit though that they wouldn't let him fight in America because of the one eye.
Yeah,
that's bullshit. Like, if he's cool and he knows the risks and he signs like a way, I don't know, like that's stupid. Just stupid.
Agreed.
All right, final fight of the night, the main fight on the card here. Sounds like we're going to get some disagreement going on too here. We got Israel Adesanya. Adesanya sitting a minus 155 favorite right now versus Nasruddin Imavov. Imavov sitting a plus 130 underdog on DraftKings Sportsbook. And right now, Adesanya 8,600 on DraftKings. Imavov 7,600 on DraftKings. Dan, what are we seeing here with this fight? I'm pretty sure I know which side you're going, but talk about it a little bit to the people.
Yeah, I'm on Imavov here. It's really just a case of, I think you got two guys going in opposite directions, which we talk about all the time. Adesanya's dropped 3 of his last 4, albeit to really good competition, but Imavov is on his way up. Also been fighting really strong competition, maybe not quite as strong, not at like a championship level, but he's been beating really good guys ever since he lost to Sean Strickland. And obviously you had the no contest with Chris Curtis, but decision win over Dolidze, knocked out Jaron Cannonier in a 4th round, decision win over Brendan Allen. And he's got a style that Adesanya in his last few fights has had trouble with. Adesanya had, he had a massive amount of trouble with the pressure that Strickland had. And Imavov does sort of the same things. I think Imavov in this fight, he will be the one coming forward. He'll be the one throwing more volume. And while Adesanya is obviously the much more technical, much more experienced, like, when's the last time this guy was out of a 5-round fight, for instance? So I understand why people are on Adesanya here. I just think that he's sort of on the decline and Imavov is on his way up. Also, Adesanya, his defensive wrestling and grappling has sort of proven to be his weak spot. And while Imavov doesn't really wrestle in volume or heavily, he has shown that he is capable of getting takedowns and wrestling and has some, pretty decent submission grappling. So I think when it hits the mat, that's advantage Imavov. So that combined with the fact that Imavov will be the one coming forward and throwing more volume, I favor Imavov here.
So, first of all, this line, I feel like by the time we hit this fight, I think more money's going to come in on Imavov. I feel like by the time we hit this fight, so if you're on the Izzy side, I would kind of wait. I think it gets, I think you could even get like a minus 130, close to that at some point. I think it could close in heavy on the Imavov side, which maybe bodes more to your point of maybe Izzy's just kind of past his prime, and, he's fought a lot and he's had some tough losses and stuff like that. The one thing though is I do think this fight plays out a lot more on the feet, and like technical wise, like that's Izzy. Like he's the guy who's going to be more technical. And you're talking about the pressure and stuff. One thing about Izzy, I feel like he's a pretty good guy at like kind of adapting to things that he struggled with. And it kind of showed in the Pereira fight, how you can lose to a guy multiple times and then come back and win and stuff like that, and win the way he did. Izzy's a guy that I naturally fade. It's funny that I'm on him here, because like all of these fights, I pretty much picked against Izzy in like every single one of these fights.
You're doing well.
No, I have done well. But I will admit, and Divichus, I was super heavy on Divichus. I love Divichus in that fight. And I bet him by submission too. So I was so happy when that fight ended. But to be fully honest, I thought Izzy was winning the fight until that point. And I thought Izzy looked pretty damn good up until that point. So again, you can be winning a fight and that's great until you just lose. And that's kind of what happened. Divichus is one of those guys that even when he's tired, he never gives up. And that's what it kind of showed, you know what I mean? But I thought Izzy looked really good. The fight against Strickland, it is what it is. Sean Strickland's a tough dude. And his style's kind of tough for a lot of people. But, losing to Pereira, like, look, the people we're talking about him losing to are the cream of the crop, like the top of the top. So it's not like Izzy is just getting whooped by any can or anything like that. His losses are just to the best of the best. So, Imavov is on the come up and he's beat some solid guys, but this is a step up for him. And I still am going to lean the Izzy side here. But like I said, I'm going to wait to bet it, because I just have a feeling that you might get a slightly better number for the Izzy side. So, sitting minus 155 right now. How much has that moved, Dan? I feel like it's moved a little bit.
It's moved a bunch. Like he opened as a minus 200 favorite, so he's now a minus 150 favorite. So that definitely plays into sort of my pick, my analysis here. But we talked about Izzy's last few fights. They all kind of have one thing in common, and it's that Izzy has been slowing down and sort of succumbing to the pressure of his opponent as we get into the championship rounds. If this were a 3-round fight, I'd probably be more willing to pick Izzy, but I have concerns the way he started to slow down and succumb to his opponent's pressure towards the end of fights. Like you were saying, when he fought DDP, he was winning early on, but we get into the 4th round, he gets caught. DDP jumps on his back and chokes him out. It's concerning. It's very concerning. Yeah. And you mentioned it earlier. Izzy has a ton of wear and tear. He's probably the most active champion the UFC has ever had. And eventually that's going to catch up to you. So, just sticking with my analysis of, you got one guy sort of on his way down and another guy on the way up. I'm going to pick the younger dude with more volume and with the forward pressure.
All right. From a DFS side, what are you doing with this fight? Are you jamming this fight here, or are you just going one-sided with Imavov?
I'm jamming this fight. It's going to be under-owned just because people do not like playing Adesanya they don't like playing him in DFS, and for good reason. He doesn't really score all that well. He doesn't have any grappling or wrestling upside. He's purely striking. He's a very measured striker, so he's not throwing a ton of volume. He hasn't really been finding many finishes outside of the Pereira fight. He's mostly fighting to decision. But it's a funny thing with 5-round fights. It's like, if the 5-round fight is going to be 100% owned, then you're going to want to play it because it's 100% owned for a reason. It's because it should be. But if a 5-round fight is going to be like this, where it's around 70 to 80% owned, you want to jam the fight because it's only going to be 70 to 80% owned. You know, you've got 5 rounds to rack up stats. You have 5 rounds for somebody to find a finish, as you know, even if it's not the most likely outcome. So I'm going to be jamming both sides, but I will probably be ending up higher on Imavov because A, I think he wins, and B, I just think he's got more scoring upside, and he's obviously the value side. He's much cheaper.
Yeah, he's definitely got he might have more scoring upside just because the takedowns and stuff, and maybe the finishing upside is more in his camp. But I think I'm going to end up being just higher on Izzy just because I might need to like spend up a little bit more. But I kind of agree with you on like the jamming of the fight, because this is the type of fight that you kind of want to jam, the fight that on a short card people don't want to jam.
Exactly. And that's a really good point. It's an 11 fight card. So your options are more limited. So if people are going to try to fade the 5-round fight, I'm going to jump right on that. Yeah. And the pricing, usually Izzy is a bigger favorite. So he's usually more expensive, but he's 8,600. So 8,600 on an 11 fight card, he's more likely to hit the optimal on this specific slate than he usually is. But people are still thinking in terms of,
yeah, Izzy at 9,700 is like the easiest fade ever in any scenario, like 9,400 even, easiest fade ever. But when he's, 83, 86, 8,700, that's a little more reasonable.
Yeah, like let's look at who's in his range here. I mean, it's a good range, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm just always gonna jam the 5-round fights. And I actually looked at the little study that I did of last year's slates. On I believe there were 5 or 6. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, there were 6 slates with 11 fights, and a 5-round fighter was optimal every single time. And I think that speaks to, obviously, the 5-round fights are optimal about 85% of the time. But when you've got limited options, the 5-round fights are, they should be top priority, no matter what they are, or no matter who's fighting.
Yep, I agree with you. Definitely going to be heavy on that fight. That's going to do it here. All 11 fights, nice short card. Dan, you want to give a favorite bet for the people before we get out of here? We'll both give a favorite bet.
Yeah. So let's see. I like Imavov, man. I'll take Imavov money line.
All right, there you go. You like Imavov. Let's see here. I'm gonna go with MVP. I just think his speed's gonna be too much for Shara. I think the speed on the feet's too much. Could be wrong. Been fading Shara this whole time. So at some point, I feel like I'm gonna get right with him, but
you do.
We'll find out here. Yeah. Well, hopefully it's this time, but who the hell knows? So that's going to do it for this card here. Stay tuned. We got an NBA show coming in about 8 minutes or so on this YouTube channel. If you're into the NBA DFS streets, hang out here. We'll be on in a few. Hope you enjoyed this show. We'll be back next week for more UFC talk. Hit the like button on your way out. If you enjoyed this show is free. We bring it to you almost every week. We appreciate it. Hit the like button. If you want to join us over at runpuresports.com, RPS 15 gets you 15% off. We do have some single sport packages too if you're just into NBA or NFL. We got obviously the 1 week left of the Super Bowl. We got golf, my gal packets. So you can hang out with us. But if you want the full package, you can use that code too, RPS 15, weekly or monthly package. Totally up to you guys. So check us out over there. For Dan and myself, JSU, we'll catch you guys next week for another show. Until then, good luck in your MMA contest.